if you have a sight line to impact and have the true purpose, which is to improve the customer's life, if that's your end game, it gives you the ability to sit with uncertainty. If
Mhm.
your end game is always the close, you're just going to ride these waves of emotional highs and lows. It's going to be harder for you to recover when you lost one. When you win one, you're not going to know why. But if your end game is, I am here to make a difference, when you lose one, you go, maybe it wasn't right for me, or maybe I didn't dig deep in it. Like you have a different response to loss. And some research out of Michigan State from Dr. Valerie Good, who I must mention, indicates that sellers who have this sense of higher purpose have more tenacity and more resilience because they're playing for bigger stakes. They're playing for impact.
Lisa McLeod is the global expert on purpose-driven business. She is the author of 5 books, including her bestseller, Selling with Noble Purpose, How to Drive Revenue and Do Work That Makes You Proud, which we are going to get into today. Lisa has spent 2 decades helping leaders increase competitive differentiation and emotional engagement. She developed the Noble Purpose methodology after her research revealed that salespeople who sell with noble purpose outsell salespeople who focus on targets and quotas. Lisa is a former Procter & Gamble sales leader who founded her own firm, McLeod & More Inc. in 2001. She helps leaders at organizations like Cisco, Roche, Volvo, and Dave & Buster's drive exponential revenue growth. Lisa has keynoted in 25 countries and authored over 2,000 articles. She has made appearances on The Today Show and the NBC Nightly News, and her firm's work has been featured in Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and NPR. And then, on top of all of that, Lisa is not only included in the Global Guru list as a top sales guru, but she clocks in at the number 3 sales guru in the world. I have been fortunate enough to meet Lisa, and to me, she is the number 1 sales guru because I not only enjoy her as a person, but I'm a huge fan of her approach to sales. I'm so ecstatic to get into this conversation today, and I am so excited to welcome Lisa to the show. Welcome to Prospecting on Purpose.
Love it. And I love the name. You know I do.
At Prospecting on Purpose. I have to tell you, I love the book so much. And why I like it is I feel like you articulate things that I've always felt, but I've never had them put into words. I've never had anyone tell me it in the way that you deliver it. So I just love it. And I'm so excited that you're here.
Well, thank you. Well, your reaction actually matches the research because the research tells us the top 10% of sellers have this innate sense of purpose. They truly want to make a difference to their customers. Now, they want to close deals, they want to make money, but their driver is wanting to make a difference to customers. And that's customers can feel it. And that's why they're the top performers. But what's interesting is after we did this research to identify that people like you were like, yes, that's what I always thought, like, yeah, I want to win the top sales award. But when you talk to them and say, tell me about my customer, your customer, they don't go, well, this one's 10,000, this one's a million. They go, oh, let me tell you about their business. But what we found was that it was teachable, that it might not be innate to everyone else the way it is to that top 10%, but is something you can teach and it will drive performance.
So I appreciate that. And I know as I've read the book, you can see it's dog-eared. I met you. I had you sign it. So you saw how much
I know. I was so excited. You really believe you signed my book? I was like, hell yeah.
It was so great. But I love you share an origin story. And I would love if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of how did you have this light bulb aha moment connecting purpose to performance?
So go back about 15 years. A lot of people talk about purpose now, but this is some of the origins of where it started. So I had been in sales. I'd been a VP of sales. I'd been a sales consultant. I'd been a sales trainer and was running my own company. And this client asked us, it was a biotech company, asked my team and I to assess their sales team and identify what differentiated the top performers. And this is interesting. So if you spend any time in sales, the difference between a good performer and a bad performer is a pretty readily identifiable set of skills. The good performers know their product. They actually make prospecting calls. They have in-depth conversations with customers. They ask good questions. Like, these are teachable skills. We know what they are. What's harder to put your finger on is what's the difference between the good and the exceptional. Shows up in the numbers, but like, what is that thing? So that's what this company wanted us to identify. And because they were a science-based company, they had us do it as a blind study, meaning we went out in the field to work with their people, and we didn't know who was who. We weren't with any poor performers. Everyone was either good, like 60, 70 percentile, or exceptional, but we didn't know who the exceptional people were. And the thought was that we could maybe spot something that they were missing. So we go out in the field, we work with all these salespeople. How long did they talk to the customer? How many questions did they ask? What were their backgrounds? We did some in-depth interviews to see their backgrounds. And it was all in search of that seemingly elusive thing. What makes the top performers the top performers? So we were near the end of the study. I was with a representative in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was about to get out of her car. Like, it's funny how these single moments of your life and everything just sort of clicks in place. I was about to get out of her car. She was dropping me off at the airport, and it's really hot outside in Phoenix. And so I've got on like a suit. I know it's going to be hot. So I'm just sitting there at the air conditioning, and I asked her a question that wasn't on our list. And I said, what do you think about when you go on sales calls? And she got really emotional, and she described this patient. She said, I was early in my career at this company. I met this patient. She was a grandmother type. She came up to me in the waiting room, asked me if I was the rep for, our drug. She said, my name badge. And she said, the little lady talked to her about, I'm just so grateful since my doctor gave me this drug. I can get on a plane. I can fly across the country. I can visit my grandkids. And this sales rep, in this very suited up, buttoned up, scientific business environment, is getting emotional as she's telling me this. And I found myself emotional listening. She said, that's why I do this job. She's my higher purpose. That is why I do this job. She said, I think about her every day. Don't feel like making cold calls? I think about her. Challenging customer? I think about her. So I got on the plane, got out of the car, got on the plane, flew the long way back to Atlanta. And I just kept turning it over and over in my mind. And what I kept thinking was, is this the thing we've been looking for? It's not how many questions did they ask. It's not how good was their product knowledge. All those things will get you to good. You need those. But is this thing, this underpinning, this emotional, psychological construct called purpose, is that the differentiator? So I go back through all the interviews, and I found 4 other reps that alluded to it. One talked about his dad being a doctor, wanting to make the doctor's life better. And so at the end of the study, the company said, who do you think our top representatives are? I said, I think it's these 5. And I was 100% right. And you're smiling because you knew that was right.
I mean, I think it's so, when you talk about the emotional piece to it too, and the science, and I think people think sales is this like hard skills. You're talking about the soft skills, but almost like quantifying them and putting your finger on it. And that is what's so like mind-blowing to me.
Well, I knew that I saw something, and I knew that it was the differentiator, because keep in mind, I was not coming to this blind. By that point, I'd watched tens and thousands of sales calls because I'd been a field sales coach. I'd trained thousands of people. And so it crystallized in my mind. That's it. That's the thing. So I tell them, it's these 5. So now the next question is, how do you know? And now my genius completely evaporates, and I totally blow the rest of the meeting because I go, well, to a bunch of scientists, I say, well, they had a different story in their heart. And they're like, what? And I couldn't quite language it at the moment, but I knew that I had seen something, and I knew that if we could codify it and teach it, it'd be magic. So in the ensuing years, so I wrote the first edition of the book not long after that. And then in the ensuing years, we've since gotten better at how to scale it, because what we now know, and it was so obvious in this environment where this little old lady, this grandmother, she can fly across the country to grandkids. It was that obvious. But I will tell you, since that time, we have also done this in a concrete company. In a plumbing company, you might think, where's the purpose there? Well, you try living your life without concrete or plumbing. We've done it with software companies because at the end of the day, if people are buying what you're selling, it's improving their life in some way. And what the mistake that companies make is they often come up with this very sanitized value prop.
Mhm.
And they think that if they can train their sellers to repeat it to customers, that that's the magic. And that's better than not having a value prop. That's better than not your salespeople not knowing it. So that will take you to good. But if you want to get to exceptional, you have to take it to the next level. And that is embedding this deep emotional understanding into your reps of how your offering makes a difference, not a generic value prop, but your version of the grandmother. Because what I learned and saw as I studied it more was when she has that clarity in her sight line, two things are happening. One, she has an emotional connection. It's not some boring value prop on a slide. Like she is really personally, emotionally invested. And so that is the get out of bed on the hard day. And there's been lots of studies since it increases resilience and all these things. But the other thing that's happening is it's translating to higher level skills. And
Mm.
that's the thing we always try and teach in sales is we'll always tell our salespeople, be more curious, ask better questions. So if I'm here to show you my value prop, I might ask questions. I might do the ones I was taught in training. I might try and find out about your business because I know I'm supposed to. But if I'm here psychologically because I want to really and truly help you, and I believe there's a high probability that I can, it shifts the psychological center of the sales call from me to you. A value prop, the psychological center of the sales call is on the seller. When you have this noble purpose, the center is on the customer. And so those noble purpose sellers ask better questions. They are more curious. And emotively, the customers can feel, I'm here to help you win. So the customers open up more.
Right. And what a great, like truly what a great way to differentiate yourself from your competitors too. If you're showing
Right.
up focused on that emotional piece and their needs and what fuels them. And I like the find your grandmother story. I'm going to use it.
Right.
What's your grandma when you show up for this? Because that I think is a very easy way to kind of understand the shift. So I would love to hear from you, maybe kind of a two-part question. Can you give a formal definition to what is noble purpose? And then maybe let's get into, if listeners are listening, how can we start to find our own for our own businesses and our own roles?
So your noble purpose is how you make a difference to customers. And a lot of people have these big, lofty purpose statements, and we are going to do this for our customers, and we're going to do this for our shareholders and our communities, blah, blah, blah. Those are all fine and well. But I'm talking about what drives sales behavior and what drives innovation and what drives organizational alignment. And that is one simple thing. How do you make a difference to your customers? How do you impact them? And not, well, they have the benefit of our services. No, literally, the question is, and we teach this in our sales training or sales coaching, how is the customer different as a result of doing business with you? That is the driving question of your business. And that also needs to be the driving question of your sales activity and your coaching. So, how do you find your own noble purpose? It's the answer to three questions. How do you make a difference? How do you do it differently than your competition? And on your best day, what do you love about your job?
Mm, I like
And
no.
so I will give you two examples of purpose statements that sound the same, but are vastly different. So there was a great article in the Harvard Business Review, and you know how they'll have like a theme and then they'll do a bunch of different articles on the theme. And it was on purpose, and it was on Mars versus Purina. And they talked about how they had similar sounding purpose statements. And Purina, pet care, pet food, we all know it, and Mars, pet care. So Mars is going to tackle this, I don't know how old Purina is, 150 years, feeding cattle on the plains. And so Purina's statement was better with pets. Mars's statement was create a better world for pets.
Ooh.
One of those is a slogan and goes on t-shirts. The other is a call to action. And so your purpose needs to be that call to action. So Mars took on Purina and won. And I would suggest that it's because they started with a different end game. And the people who decided that had a different ethos.
Mhm.
And then a better world for pets means, where are pets suffering? What can we do differently for pets? It got them into pet health. It got them into this. So it drives the top thinking, the strategic north of your organization. Because if you're trying to make the strategic north of your organization increase market share, increase revenue, increase profitability, those are trailing indicators. They're not strategy. They're benchmarks, they're numbers. They matter, but they're not strategy. We're going to make a better world for pets, like that's going to spurn some action. So it spurns all this innovation and all these other things. But then let's take it down to the micro. If I am the seller and you're a vet, and I'm having a sales call on you, I can't just go in and go, look at our brochures, how we're making a better world for pets. I have to say, tell me about your patients, doctor. What are some of the challenges you're seeing with them? What are the biggest issues? And so then I'm not just about this slogan, better with pets like Purina. I am about this true north, but I need to do it on the individual sales call. And that's what gets lost with people.
Mhm.
Is they think that, okay, it needs to be a catchy slogan. No, they think it needs to maybe just sit at the executive level and make decisions. No, it needs to be in the individual sales call. And it can't just be generic, I'm here to help you with your business. But like in the case of Mars, I'm here to, with you, create a better world for pets. And that means the pets you're serving.
Right. Well, what I love, I had like two kind of aha moments listening to you debrief that. The first is I love the fact that, we're talking about selling with noble purpose, but it goes beyond that, because if you have the purpose at the organization level, I love your example of it, opening up new revenue streams, opening up how you show up to your clients. If you're talking to the vet, how is the pet, who's the grandma in this situation, suffering?
The pet is the grandmother, just so we're clear. Yes.
The pet's the grandma. But what I love about it is it drives the whole organizational goals as an actual, I love you use True North. I use North Star. It's the same. And one thing that I think when you talked about the Purina slogan, better for pets versus Mars, we make a better world for pets. To me, that's like a hard line in the sand of arrogance versus like authenticity.
Well, to be clear, theirs wasn't better for pets. It was better with pets.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Purina.
Sorry, Purina. Yeah. You made an error, but it was not an error of arrogance.
Yeah.
It was an error. It was a strategic error. Better with pets is like, life is better with pets. We love pets. We love pets. We blah, 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 blah. So yeah, great. We're in the club. Great. What's the club do?
Right.
Right. And so but isn't it interesting also? We think words don't matter. With and for, like we just changed it. But what you were absolutely correct in, better with pets is about us.
Right.
And most companies' purpose statements are, we will deliver a return to shareholders. We will do this. We will do that. They're still about them. Now, when I say we, so I'll give you an example of another company's purpose statement that was really effective. Everyone thinks they need this lofty, change the world, dent the universe thing. Great if you've got it. We had one company that was an IT company that worked with small businesses, and they like handled your IT for small business. Their purpose was literally, we help make small businesses more successful.
So like straightforward.
It's so clear. It's so straightforward. They were a franchise organization. So even more need to be clear. So every franchisee, your purpose to go out in this world and make small businesses more successful. Then if I'm a seller and I'm meeting with a small business, well, I want to help make them more successful. So back to, what are the skills we always try and get salespeople to do that they never do when they leave the classroom? Mm-hmm. Ask better discovery questions, show more curiosity, help the customer, understand the customer's goals. And what I would submit is the reason that most salespeople don't do that is not because they're bad people. It is because their manager is in their ear saying, close it, close it, close it. But when we change and their manager is in their ear saying, your job is to help make these small businesses more successful. Well, if I'm here to make you more successful, I got to know how you define success. I got to know what you're trying to do. I got to know what your pain points are. I got to know what your aspirations are. And so what it does when you have that clarity is it helps the managers do better coaching. Right. Because now we're coaching to customer impact. Revenue is the trailing indicator. Revenue, you got to price yourself right. You got to have margin. You got to have all that stuff. But the reason people don't do value-based selling is because because they've given a generic value prop and a manager's in their ear saying, close it, close it, close it, which forces the rep to think about themselves instead of saying, find out how you can make these people be more successful.
Right. Well, what's so nice about that is from an individual seller's perspective, instead of remembering all the bells and whistles you learned in training, everything under the gauntlet, drinking through the fire hose, you just have one thing to focus on.
It becomes the true north, and everything else is in the service of that. And I want to say something. You talked about how this drives innovation, competitive differentiation. In an ideal world, when I work with clients, we're working with the CEO, and we either create the purpose statement or they already have it. One of our best clients is Hilton. Conrad Hilton, 100 years ago, said, our purpose is to fill the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality. So they had it. They did not need our help with that. What they've got to do is make that come alive with the guy selling meetings in Thailand and the bellman. So that getting that, what is your part in that is what we work with them on. But what I want to say is, so that was ideal. CEO, we're on board. We're doing training with every single person in the whole organization. Great. But if you're an individual contributor and you're listening to say, I can never get my CEO on board, here's the good news. You don't have to.
Right.
You don't need any help from them. And if they are in your ear saying, close it, close it, close it, doesn't matter. What we saw in our research is you can be that top tier seller that sits there and you answer those questions for yourself. How do I make a difference? How do I do it differently? On my best day, what do I love about my job? And you get your paragraph of the answers to that, and you're good to go.
Right. Well, I was going to say, you can buy Lisa's book. I'll link it in our show notes, and I'm holding it up for the YouTube. But I love the book because it really gives a nice structure and a roadmap. Like you give plenty of examples of how it works that you can remember, but you also give a lot of framework in the why. And so I echo Lisa's statements. If you're an individual contributor, read this book. Let's talk a little bit about if you're a leader and you're trying to instill that, because I think that, our leaders are also getting it from their bosses. When is this going to
from the market?
Yeah. So
the CEO is getting it, publicly traded company.
Right.
They don't care about my noble purpose. They care about quarterly earnings.
Right. So where's the balance? What can leaders do to make sure that they're supporting their teams in selling the noble purpose?
So I'll give you a little bit of an overview, and I'll give you one thing. And it's super easy. One thing. So the overview is you have to understand that revenue and profit are lagging indicators. They are the result of your product offering and all that, but your team's interactions with customers. And so if as a leader, it's the measurement of your success. If as a leader, you are constantly hearing your team, revenue and profit, you are like a coach trying to train a runner and constantly shouting their times at them. Ooh. They will go a little bit faster when you're shouting at them, but they are not going to get to consistent top tier level unless you look at their conditioning and their training, their start, their stride, those are the things. So you cannot coach to revenue and profit any more than you can coach to a runner's times. So I rarely use sports analogies, but
I like that one. I was
like you picture this coach going, go faster, go faster. Like that might work when you're on the sidelines at the Olympics and they might see your face. But if you haven't done all the other stuff, it's not going to work.
No long game strategy there. There's no long game there.
Go strategy, go faster, go faster. So what do you coach to? So I'm going to give you a single question. So if you're a leader, whether you're the VP of sales, the CEO, Jane or Joe, sales manager with two people, you ask this question. When a deal is in play, you say, how will this customer be different as a result of doing business with us? We call it the game-changing question. And the reason is your seller's ability to answer that question gives you insight into what kind of value case they are presenting for the customer, what kind of customer intelligence they have, how deep they've gone. And here's what we know with sales managers that we coach. If all your sellers know, whether it's 2 or 2,000, that I'm going to ask you when there is a deal on the table, or if you're coming to me to try and get a lower price because I'm the one that has to approve that, or if we're doing a pipeline review, you learn that every time I ask you, how will this customer be different as a result of this deal? What happens is you start to do better discovery. And the key that we're trying to get to, the behavior that we want from our sellers is the intent, I'm here to make a difference, leads me to more curiosity and deeper discovery. Then I do this deeper discovery, then I'm able to link to higher level objectives within the customer. When I link to higher level objectives, I get further up the food chain, the customer, I make a better value case, I get differentiated. Deals don't always come down to price. And so everybody thinks, oh, my people need to be better negotiators because deals are coming down to price. No, they might need some negotiation training, but that's probably not where your problem is. The reason it's coming down to price is because you don't have any differentiation. So if you're a sales manager and you ask this, and we spend a lot of time coming up with this question, identifying, it's almost like emotional chess. Mm-hmm. You're trying to ask a question to get the seller's brain out of, am I going to make my bonus? Are you mad at me? Am I going to close it? Because the usual sales manager questions are, when are you going to close it? How much is it going to be? Who's the competition? Do you have all the decision makers? Mm-hmm. Good questions, but none will reveal information that make you more compelling.
Well, and in that example too, I think that as you walked us through that, thank you. I feel like you had said something earlier in the interview about translating to higher skills. And it is really interesting that framework of purpose and then the one question, how will the client be different as a result of doing business with us? Those are pretty easy to boil it down to those two things. If you keep that as your focus
all the time, right?
I love it.
So like imagine, to take us out of this world and another world where they focus on lagging indicators, schools, test scores. I'm a parent, Google the test scores, decide where we're going to live. So they're an indicator. But we also know that the overemphasis on test scores has really eroded the love of learning and teacher engagement. Mm-hmm. So imagine a school where the teachers all meet every morning or every Monday or whatever. And they have, let me be clear, they have enough baseline supplies. The kids are showing up to school well-fed. Like, we got the stuff. We got the stuff to be good, okay? And imagine that school if every Monday, I, as the principal, say, okay, we're going to get those test scores up, versus a school where I say, how are we creating informed citizens? How are we creating people that think? Like, as a teacher, one, I'm going to be a hell of a lot more motivated, but two, I'm going to have a totally different set of lesson plans. I'm going to have a totally different set of thinking about each individual student. And again, if you don't have enough books or the kids haven't had enough food, like, that's a different issue. So if you're listening to this and you're that company, if your product is failing, you need to ask this question with product development.
Get the baseline survival skills done and then go from here. And that is so helpful too, because I think about, that's where I obviously see why you're a global sales guru. I think everyone who's listening can understand it too, but you're helping facilitate a framework and how we can all work in an environment that we all enjoy more. And it's coming from a place of like human connection, authenticity. It's not pushing numbers. It's not pushing deals out. It's coming from a place where we all crave this, no matter what type of leader you are. Everyone craves this, and you are giving us the tools to do it.
Once we get past food and shelter, human beings have two fundamental needs: belonging and significance. I want to be part of something bigger than myself, and I want my contribution to matter. And I want to be really clear, when you introduced me, there were two things you talked about where my expertise is: emotional engagement and competitive differentiation. And they are linked, they are connected. And so when I have this sense of belonging, what we're doing here matters. This work matters. I'm part of a team of people that's doing something different. And again, you might be doing concrete. You mentioned we work with Dave and Buster's. I love Dave and Buster's. Their purpose is we champion laugh out loud fun. Like they are all about you come in, your life may suck, but for 3 hours, it's going to be fun at Dave and Buster's. So this sense that we're doing something, and the competitive differentiation is we're doing it differently and we're doing it better. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing is sometimes that differently and better is the sales team. Sometimes you may have a very similar product to your competitor, but because of the way your sales team interacts, they become the competitive differentiator. And I say that because we've all been, including me, on the receiving end of, well, we went with someone else because they could do this and this. And you're like, I could do that.
Right.
But they were obviously better. And so this emotional engagement and competitive differentiation are the leading indicators. And I want to be super clear on this. Salespeople with a purpose, bigger than money, outsell salespeople focused on targets. Companies with a purpose bigger than money outperform the S&P by over 350%. So make no, like this isn't some touchy-feely when you have the chance on a good day, when you've had a good year. Like
not
this
fluff, concrete.
Yeah, this is the very essence of creating a top-tier organization, or if you're an individual contributor, top-tier performance for yourself, and let all those other people wonder,
right,
why is that person always number one?
Well, I was always the top performer, and I know it was because I valued the relationships first, because I knew that my competitor wasn't necessarily the competing product, but it's the relationship the competitor has with the ideal client. And if I could own the relationship, I got all their projects. I had snowball sales. I could easily ask for favors. I could easily ask for referrals. But what's tricky about that is the relationship to leadership is really hard to quantify. And so I really appreciate how you have boiled this down to your expertise and put it into a way that can be really like digestible at any level.
And I want to say something about the relationship. I was coaching a senior executive and he's trying to build relationships. And he said, I've got these tickets to the Washington Capitals. I could ask people. I'm at blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, he goes, but I'm just not excited about it. And I said, there's a reason you're not excited, because even that is transactional and they will read right through you.
Right.
And I want to be super clear on this. This seller trying to be your buddy, trying to be your pal. No. Customers can read intent. Mm-hmm. And so we have two groups of people who are better at reading intent than any other group of people ever. One, we have more customers who are women, and women can read intent, generally speaking, really well. Why is this? Millions of years of having to protect ourselves lets us read intent. Okay. Like the reason we're alive is because our ancestors were really good at it. So that's one. But the other thing we have is we have a younger group of buyers. And this younger group of buyers came of age in the internet when everything was coming at them. So they have a great BS meter. Mm-hmm. I grew up with like one guy on the news and I was like, well, I guess that's true. He's on the news. But younger people grew up with lots of information and they knew it wasn't all true. And so I have a client that summed it up really well. She is the head of HR for a global bank. So she has tons of people calling her, trying to sell software, recruiting, blah, 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 blah. And she said, when we went in COVID, when everything went virtual, she said, what was annoying in person is intolerable on Zoom.
Like mic drop.
And I was like, yep. Because in person, if I'm self-focused, we're going to have a cup of coffee. We're going to shake hands. We're going to sit down. We're going to do all those things that kind of put a little niceties around it. But when we are emailing a prospect in your world, or we are having that first conversation, all that nicety, social stuff has been stripped away and you are reading my intent. And if you are sending your salespeople out the door with close it, close it, close it, that is going to translate to your customers and it's not going to work anymore. It's not going to work. If they do close it, it will come down to price and you will rebid that business every year.
Right. So you don't own anything. And if you can find a way to connect with intent and add value, that's going to be what shines through.
Right. And they see you. Back to your point about, we all have this thing. People do business with people they like. Be likable, be trustworthy, be like, all that's true, but that's the outcome. The reason people called you was you always had their back. They read your intent and they went, and people are going to go with past the least resistance. Sarah they're probably not thinking this in their head, but their little subconscious is going, she's out for us. She cares about us. She always has our back. We could bid this thing, get a bunch of people. That's going to take a bunch of my time. Hey, Sarah.
Especially because the knowledge, like you have the knowledge too. It's like, oh, well, on your other project, this is a roadblock we run into. Let's avoid it over here. Like that equity.
Them.
Yeah.
In a way. And you can do all of that on Zoom. You don't have to take them to lunch. Right. You don't have to be their buddy. You don't have to take them to a Washington Capitals game. What we ended up coming up with was he's going to write a white paper, a short white paper about his highest aspirations for his clients. And I was like, that's going to do you a ton more good, because then you're just putting your intent out there.
Right. And and to your point of how is the customer going to be different after this interacting with me, it gives you that clarity too. Because I think sometimes, myself included, as I'm building my business, sometimes you miss those opportunities to really narrow down and focus. How is this person going to be different after working with me? And if you can keep asking yourself that, that's going to help finesse and massage that messaging
and get it clear. And so if you're a sales manager and you ask your seller, how will they be different? Well, their accounting system will be faster. Go further. Say, what will that affect? And it's going to be, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be awkward, and we're not looking for a perfect answer. As the sales manager, when you're asking the question and you see the wheels spinning, that's your magic moment. The right answer isn't your magic coaching moment. Your magic coaching moment, and there's some brain science around this. If you've ever watched a toddler trying to do a puzzle, those puzzles that just have like one piece that fits in, and you watch them in the struggle. When you are watching them struggle, they are developing a new neural pathway, and they are learning, and all those synapses are connecting. When it's easy, it's habit.
Right.
So when you ask your seller, how will the customer be different? And they say, well, their accounting systems will be faster. Well, they'll have more insight into their data. What will that do for them? They'll make better decisions. What kinds of decisions? Who will be affected by that? And really get them to do what we call the ripple effect, because what happens is in our value prop, we often won't take credit for the things that we indirectly affect. So like I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, our ripple effect is higher employee engagement, higher margin deals, and increased market share. I can't 100% take credit for that. If I were to say our value prop, to say, I absolutely can do this. If you have a competitor that invents something better than you, I can help you with employee engagement, but if you all of a sudden decide to cut their salaries or do some stupid policy, and so what happens is we're all like that we say, well, I can't guarantee that. But if you can get clear on the ripple effect, they have better insight into their data. They make better decisions. Better in what way? They avoid mistakes. What kinds of mistakes? They can save costly, ventures down the wrong path, like choosing the wrong product or going after the wrong customer base. And a lot of times you'll get people to push back and they'll go, well, I can't guarantee that. You don't have to guarantee it, but your insight into how you can affect it becomes the basis for your sales calls.
Right.
And then the customer's connecting the dots.
It gives an emotional end game. It's almost like going into the sales call with the intention. And if the intention is this ripple effect benefit, then you're coming from a place of sincerity when you approach the meeting.
Because and then you're saying, so tell me, you can say something like, typically when people use our programs, they get better insights into their data and it helps them make better decisions. Tell me a little bit about the decisions that you make that draw from data.
Love that.
So now I'm in their world, but in my lane that I can affect.
Right. And then they share their reasoning. And then it's almost like you're using their own business model to drive how you run the
drive it. Because there's some real distinctions here. The seller drives the interaction, but is based on the customer's situation and objectives. And that's a really important nuance. You are proactive, but you're not proactive in a push model. You are proactive setting the stage. Typically, we help people with differentiation. Tell me a little bit about how you're differentiating yourself. Now, I don't know what the answers to that are going to be. I have a 90% confidence that we can help you. It's only 90% though. Like you might say, we sell the most vanilla thing on the planet and people buy everything on the web. And I say, well, I think you need a good marketing consultant. So here you go. And one of the things we observed in those top performing sellers, there was a secret skill that they had, and it was the ability to sit with uncertainty. So that 90% confidence, I can help most people. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like for you, and I'm not going to push something on you if you're in that 10%. And that ability to sit with uncertainty, because we've all seen the sales rep where we say, ask more questions. And the client says, well, we might have a need with this. And the sales rep goes, I got it. And then pitch mode. But the ability to go, tell me a little more about that. And what happens is you only gain that ability if you have a sight line to impact and have the true purpose, which is to improve the customer's life. If that's your end game, it gives you the ability to sit with uncertainty. If your end game is always the close, you're just going to ride these waves of emotional highs and lows. It's going to be harder for you to recover when you lost one. When you win one, you're not going to know why. But if your end game is, I am here to make a difference, when you lose one, you go, maybe it wasn't right for me, or maybe I didn't dig deep in it. Like you have a different response to loss. And some research out of Michigan State from Dr. Valerie Good, who I must mention, indicates that sellers who have this sense of higher purpose have more tenacity and more resilience because they're playing for bigger stakes. They're playing for impact.
And just even the idea of sitting with the unknown or uncertainty, I think that is like a true test of confidence. And if you're confident in that, that shines through too. And so you're showing to your client that you're a trusted, established growth partner to them because you're confident enough to not know everything. And that's what people want to work with.
And it's really hard. And if you're thinking, well, easy for her to say, she's sitting there, got a good business. I will tell you, if you read the book, 15 years ago, I was broke. I'd always had a successful career, but during the recession, the 08, 09, how long ago that was, recession, we lost a family business that was in the construction industry and we went bankrupt. And so I know very well the needing the money and having to sit here calmly. And that is very, very hard. And what I came to realize was I don't have to be calm all the time. I only have to be calm in front of the customer.
Yeah. Funny.
I can be like,
I like that.
College tuition. That's like a separate conversation. But one of the things that really helped me, I had a lot of training and that was where I was starting to write this book. And I thought, okay, girly girl, you got to model this and you got to model it from a place of being down here to see if it really works. And I remember before sales calls, there's a thing in the book, the 10-second game changer. You take a breath. You say, I have a plan and I'm open. And I'm here to figure out if I can make a difference to these people. And you only have to get yourself in that space for the duration of that sales call. So you don't like that. You can have, I just talked to somebody about like this micro dose of confidence.
I do a power pose before all the big calls.
And
I listen to a song that pumps me up.
Yeah. But that calm,
I
have a plan and I'm open. Like that's what makes for a great sales call. Not willy-nilly, whatever they want. No, I've got some ideas and I've done my homework and I think I can help them, but this is going to be about them. And I used to tell myself, I think, or I'm pretty sure, or there's a good likelihood that I can help them. And that gets me out of me and how much I might want to close this and to them. And then over time you build that muscle and you close more business and you know that it works. But when you really are behind on your number, your boss is in your ear, in my case, you have college tuition due in 30 days, like it's hard. And so what I remember thinking is all this freneticness, I need to put that into activity, not into the interactions, or they'll read it.
Well, and I liked what your comment about the leading indicators versus the results. Like I
Right.
had a boss who would always say, Sarah, just keep doing the right thing and the results will follow. And I echo the feelings of sitting with uncertainty sometimes, but it's like if you keep
Yeah,
seeds and showing up authentic with a place of purpose, that's going to shine through.
it does. And it has never been more true than at this moment.
Yeah.
Because two things happened during COVID. So, having been through the recession in a big, bad, ugly way, I knew that when we have these big events, people change. And two things happened during the recession. Sellers started asking themselves, why am I here? Am I just a cog in your money machine? Does what we do even make a difference? Because there's no coffee bar, there's no sales meeting, there's no swag, there's no getting together with my buddies. There's me in my Zoom at my kitchen table with my laptop. And so sellers started asking, does our work matter? And then the second thing was customers started asking, are you here to help me or are you just here to sell me? And neither COVID may be over, but those two questions remain at the forefront of the seller relationship with the employer and the customer relationship with the seller. And the companies that master those and answer, you are more than a cog in a money machine. Our work matters. And the sellers who answer that with a customer, I am here to help you. I am here to make a difference. We are already seeing those are the companies that are winning.
Oh, I feel it and we see it. And I think that everyone who's listening echoes that. And I think a really great starting point will be Lisa's books. So I will link them in the show notes. Before we wrap up, Lisa, I have like a story I want to share with you, but is there anything else you want to leave the audience with? That's my first question.
Yes. Go to our website, just Google
I'll
selling
link
with
it.
no
I'll link
purpose.
it. Yeah.
And we have got some really good HBR articles that we've done recently. One was how to scale your sales team. That was a great article, I thought. And another was about how to be a purpose-driven leader without burning out.
I love that. And Lisa's on LinkedIn too. So I'll include her LinkedIn so you guys can follow
Yeah,
her.
and follow me on LinkedIn. I took a break from doing LinkedIn lives and I'm starting to do them again. And I do them on Friday and I just do them for 15 minutes because
Yeah,
I've
they're so great.
that, and so does everybody else.
And you have great authors on too. Like you always learn something. And what I love about Lisa too is you're very contemporary. Like you keep up with what's happening in sales right now versus just tried and true. You know, you're very contemporary thought leader. So I appreciate that about you as well.
That was a nice way of saying you're old,
No,
but yet you still know what's going on. No, I know.
anyone.
I'm not telling you sales stories from 1991. So
Exactly. It's fresh and current. And it's going to help for like, selling on LinkedIn, selling in virtual landscapes, multi-generations. Like you're just very contemporary and current.
the core principles are product and market agnostic.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And I think about, so I want to share a quick story about how I met Lisa because I just found as I was prepping for our interview, I was like searching my Google Drive and I found a list of dream guests that I wanted to have on the podcast. And you were like my number one dream guest. And I think one of the things that I want to leave this group with, because it is a prospecting, business development, sales mindset, like those are the things we talk about. But sometimes you just have to put yourself in the position to get the meeting. And so I was introduced to Lisa probably like 18 months ago at this point, and we had a quick, meet and greet. And I knew you lived in Georgia because I followed your LinkedIn lives. And so I had to be in Miami and I had a free place to stay in Atlanta. And I had 3 people I wanted to meet in Atlanta, and you were one of my 3. So I got a rental car. I stayed in this person's house in their spare bedroom, and I emailed like, hey, I'm going to be in town. And you had said, I live like quite a ways out of the city. I was like, I live in LA. It doesn't matter. Like, and it was just one of those things where it was funny because I knew that you would understand where I was coming from and trying to get a meeting with you. So like, I knew that the pleasantly persistent was going to be accepted. But guys, sometimes you just need to get to Atlanta and rent a car and pack your book and your purse and show up and take Lisa to breakfast so she can sign your book and be on the podcast.
You were pleasantly, I love it, pleasantly and politely persistent. And I could see it and I could see your intent. And I did. I had been out of town and I remember I was like, I can tell she really wants to meet and she really is very earnest about this. And I'm like, okay,
Like,
this is you 20 years ago. Go meet with her and do this. So it was a great meeting. And then we just gabbed and gabbed and gabbed.
I know. I had the best time. And I think that's what that really is what this is all about. And so I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being on the show. And I will link everything up in the show notes. Lisa is a keynote speaker. She's a corporate trainer. Like, she is the real deal. And I am so grateful for you taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks. And I do want to take a minute to talk about your business. Just take 30 seconds. It does all start with the prospecting. If you are not prospecting with this sense of purpose, not going to get the meetings. And if you do, they're going to be very transactional. So I love that you have zeroed in on the thing that people do so badly that is like the linchpin thing. So I love your business model.
Thank you. Yes. And we call it, speaking of words, we call it prospecting on purpose because we want to go in with intention and a plan of what the outcome is. Like, all right, I'm going to Atlanta. I mean, these 3 people, I'm getting the car. Gonna make it happen. Just hold you more accountable to do it. And you just never know where life's gonna take you. Now I know, I feel like I can call you Lisa if I'm stuck and say, hey, I'm stuck. And I know, I don't know for sure, but I think you would take my call. And that is not, that's not why, that wasn't the intention of having you on the show. I really want to spread this message because it's something that really resonated so deeply with me. So thank you so much.
Thank you.